Hey guys, how's it going? Hope you're doing well. My name is Crown, and today I'm going to read you some very interesting stories that I hope that you're gonna love. And now, without further ado, let's go! So this happened to me a couple of years ago. I-19 female was flying halfway across the world, 16 hours straight plane ride. I usually always pay a little extra and choose the aisle seat because A, I'm too short to reach the overhead cabin, so I put my backpack under the seat in front of me. And aisle seats do not interfere with passengers in front of me. B, middle seats give me motion sickness. And C, I don't like to be sandwiched between two unknown people. I boarded the flight first, and this mom with two kids somehow boarded after me. It was weird because airlines always board moms with toddler first. But anyway, this woman came up to me and said I should give up my seat because she has two kids and she deserves the aisle seat. I told her no because I paid extra for the aisle seat. This airline has pre-designated seats, so it's not like I stole her seat or something. She began telling me how kids these days have no manners and they don't know how to respect moms, and she told her kids to take the seats next to me. After a while, a few more passengers boarded and one of them came up to my row and asked me if they were my kids, because the seats belonged to them. I said no and pointed to the lady sitting on the other side. The entitled mom had an argument with this nice passenger, saying she's traveling alone with her two kids and that she's pregnant. She certainly did not look pregnant, or at least she wasn't showing, and that we are being very disrespectful. The nice passenger was like, "Look ma'am, having kids was your choice. Don't blame us, okay?" The entitled mother started throwing a tantrum saying that we are harassing her, and started pulling my backpack from under the seat. The stewardess came up and asked us what the issue was. The nice passenger told her the whole thing, and the stewardess asked us for our boarding passes, which clearly mentioned our seat numbers. The entitled mother was livid when the stewards told her that her seat is at the back of the plane. She went back and kept sending her kids in the front to our seats and bothering us by pushing our food trays, pulling my backpack and crying and punching us. Thankfully, the stewardess came by and saw all of this and warned the mom. The best part was when we landed, she was escorted by the security for misconduct, attempted battery, and carrying suspicious items in her luggage. And the airline offered a discount for me and for the nice passenger. So my sister and I were talking about things that happened in our childhoods last night over FaceTime, and my mom, who happened to be cleaning something nearby, yelled over at us, "Do you remember what happened to Mrs. A?" Oh mother, I do remember exactly what happened to Mrs. A. All names here are made up in case these people are still out there and they are on Reddit. To set the scene for you a bit, I was in primary school, maybe about 9 or 10, and this happened well over 15 years ago now. I was a pretty strange child and I got into a fair deal of trouble. I'm actually autistic but went undiagnosed until I was nearly 14. So a lot of what I was doing was written off as bad behavior as opposed to normal behavior for an autistic child. For example, I didn't do my homework for 3 years. No one noticed. Somehow, because it took too much time away from my special interest. David Attenborough. In hindsight, I think this is a good thing as I did very well academically. In hindsight, I think this is a good thing, as I did very well academically all through school, and I think having a support teacher would have held me back. My primary school, however, did have a special unit for special needs children, most of whom had autism that was more severe than mine is. The problem is when you bring autistic children with very different needs and social tolerances together, things can, well, get out of hand. There was this one boy we will call James. James was a terror. He used to hit and bite and chase other children. He used to chase us with his water bottle and soak us with water, which was particularly bad as our school uniform had a white shirt. I'm a woman and I started puberty much earlier than any of the other girls I grew up with. So I did have a small but existing girly figure at this point. James thought it was hilarious to pick on me specifically. James would often do this as he left school to walk home. I lived just outside my primary school, so I was allowed to walk home from the age of 7 or so because my mom could see me out the window. She would often get into loud shouting arguments with James' mom, the entitled mother of our story. And that's when James did this to me. James' mom thought because he had Asperger's he was allowed to do anything. That he was doing nothing wrong, that he was just a little boy being a little boy, and I'm the one who should be ashamed. I was 10, lady. I remember very vividly her screaming in my face one day, "How dare you bully a disabled boy? My son has special needs, it's only water." Not because of what she said, that was pretty much run in the mill for her, but it was her breath. It reeked. Eventually there came a day I'd had enough. I was walking home drinking one of those dinky cartons of chocolate milk you get at school. I think I had it left over from lunch. James runs up to me, delighted, and begins soaking my friend Simon, who tells him to get lost, you little freak, but obviously that didn't work. As he turned to me, I hit him first, not with my fists, with my milk. I squirted that cartoon good over him, and it mostly failed. It got in his face and his hair and all over this bright blue coat he was wearing, causing him to scream and start flapping about in panic. His mom ambles over to us screaming, while my mom is screaming from our window and Simon and I bolt. I ran inside my house as fast as I could, but it wasn't long before James' mom turned up at the door shrieking at my mom. I mostly hid during all of this, but the general back and forth was, "Your child is a devil child," the entitled mother yells. Mom tells her, "We told you not to let him do that before. He shouldn't be splashing little girls like that, or he will turn into a perv. How dare you? He's a disabled little boy. How do you have no compassion for him?" Eventually she left, declaring loudly she was going over to the school right now to speak to Mrs. A and get me expelled. Mrs. A was our head teacher and a young nice lady who I'd always thought was stern but nice. This really upset me because what if I got expelled from primary school? What if I became a moron? What if I never learned my 9 times table? We got a call later that night from Mrs. A asking if my mom could come in tomorrow afternoon to speak with her about me. And I didn't need to come in tomorrow until we had all spoken. I felt the worst. My mom had to miss half a day of work, my dad was livid, and I felt so embarrassed. I was sure I was in a world of trouble. To my surprise, I was in no trouble whatsoever. I was in Mrs. A's office for less than 5 minutes. She just told me not to do it again and to go to the few hours left of my class for that day. So I did. However, I did notice Mrs. A had a very swollen black eye. My mother was filled in on the rest after I left. Apparently, Mrs. A thought it was the funniest thing she'd ever heard and started laughing her head off. After James' mom stormed off from our door to go talk to her yesterday, she apparently barged into the school and into Mrs. A's office. Mid-meeting with the other teaching staff, she started screaming while dragging milk-covered James, trailing it everywhere behind her. I never got relayed how it went down exactly, but the gist was after Mrs. A refused to expel me, she felt it would be unfair to punish a child who had been routinely subjected to her son's misbehaving. James' mom punched her in the face in her own office and in front of the entire staff. The janitor, a big burly man, escorted her out and she had been banned from the school grounds. Mrs. A told my mom if this was a normal situation, I would have told both children off, as neither behavior is acceptable. But in light of what happened yesterday, I'm more inclined to find what your daughter did as rather funny. Shortly after that, James left the school, and I never heard from either of him or his crazy mom ever again. I still think it's crazy she thought she could attack the head teacher. I don't blame James for any of it. He was only a kid and one who had social problems defining boundaries anyway, because of his autism, you know? Having a crazy mom probably didn't help him at all, and I hope as he got older, he found friends and stopped splashing people with bottled water. So this happened exactly 5 years ago while I was still in high school. My first cousin had his first kid, a baby boy his wife named Lucian. and he invited my family, father, mother, brother, me, and the grandparents. Now to understand, this happened in Croatia, with him being Croatian and his wife Italian. After the baptism, we went to the nearby restaurant to celebrate. There were around 100 people, and among them were the jerks from his wife's side. Now as the party is beginning, me and my family take our places at the main table. The entitled snobs entered behind us, all dressed extremely well, and started trying to find their places to sit. And after seeing them started to grumble, turning around and seeing my family sitting near the main table, the entitled father closed distance and started the conversation. "I'm sorry, but could you trade places, please? We don't like the places we are given as our kid is afraid of heights." The restaurant was built on a cliff, giving it a magnificent look. Dad says, "Yeah, sure, why not? I will just talk with the cousin to tell him." "That'll be lovely, thank you." Dad went to get the cousin when the Satan appeared. "Will you please move already? What is taking so long? My son wishes to sit here." The entitled mother shrieked. Mom tells her, "Oh, my husband went to tell the cousin that we will switch places because of food and everything else." "Fine, just hurry up." I was getting up to stretch my legs and walked around looking at my phone. The entitled kid was about 13 at the time and was walking around waiting to get the place to sit. He saw me raise my head and started with a tone that was probably used by feudal lords when they talked down to their peasants. "Well, it's good to see you started to get moving. About time, I must say." "Excuse me, what?" He smiled and continued. "I say it's nice you are giving us a place to sit so that we can have suitable accommodation. I'm sure you will like to sit over there," showing at the table near the end. "Okay, what does that mean?" "Oh, nothing. Just what I said." I looked in confusion but decided to leave it be and continued to walk around. A few minutes later, we switched places. When the dinner started, the meals were given to all guests at the baptism. The entitled jerks were apparently disgusted with the quality of food they got, and after seeing us eating our meat, the entitled dad and kid watched us. That's when brother and dad got up to talk with some people, and the entitled dad and kid came down and started talking. The entitled dad says, "I'm sorry, but could we have that part of the portion you have eaten?" showing at the big plate on which the food was brought. Mom says, "Excuse me?" The entitled kid smiled smugly. "Well, it's not like you need to get more food into yourself now, do you?" I say, "I'm sorry, but..." "What did you just say?" "I think my son is trying to tell you that it might be time to go on a diet," the entitled dad said. At this point, I was just completely and utterly surprised by this that neither I or my mother could answer. They just took the plates and went to their table. The dad came back a few minutes later, finding my mother on the brink of tears and myself just fuming with anger. The dad asked what happened, and after telling him I had to stop him from going there and caving, the entitled dad hid in. At that moment, my grandfather from my father's side came to our table and heard what happened. Unlike my dad, my grandfather didn't care about the possible repercussions, so he just got up and started walking towards him. When we came to the table, we saw them telling something to the Italians next to them, and they all started smiling. The entitled dad says, "Yes, how can I help you?" Grandfather says to me, "Tell the jerk to apologize." We were communicating on English and my father didn't know the language. The entitled father just smiled, while the entitled mother got up and said, "If I were you, I would consider this as a help. If you ate any more, you would start resembling pigs." Now we were really angry. At that moment, the cousin brother heard what was going on and came to the table visibly very angry. "I'm sorry, but what the heck did you just say to my family?" "Nothing but the truth," the entitled dad says. "I still don't know what the cousin wife saw in him. You are all nothing more than hillbillies, as is quite obvious." Now cousin's brother is a retired colonel, who is now working as a stonemason, and he is very easily angered, but still he held his composure until the following moment. The entitled kid, which stood up in the meantime, said, "In all honesty, even calling you hillbillies is an insult to them, as you are not even that." Now I agree that my following action was not the smartest one, but he just insulted my entire family. And I have to say the feeling when I punched his smug, entitled face was absolutely worth it. So yeah, I hit him. And of course that caused the entitled mother to get up and start screaming, "What did you do to my baby boy, you animal? I will have you all arrested." The entitled dad slapped me in retaliation and started yelling something in Italian. Curses, I presume. The people at other tables were stunned and the cousin came running down with his wife. After hearing what happened, the entitled mother continued yelling, now back in English, while holding her son, who now had a busted lip. "I want this animal arrested. How dare you strike my son, you jerk?" At this moment, brother comes after hearing what happened and starts yelling, "You better apologize for what you said to my mother, you ugly cow, or there will be 2 ambulances coming here." At this moment, brother comes after hearing what happened and starts yelling, "You better apologize for what you said to my mother, you ugly cow, or there will be 2 ambulances coming here." The entire party went to crab with us, yelling on Italians and Italians on us. But then the cousin wife, God bless her, came to the entitled mother and slapped the heck out of her. She started yelling something about her being an entitled witch. And the only reason that they have anything is that she flirted her way into the position she's currently in. I heard this from another hand, so I'm not completely sure what she said. In either way, they never raised any charges, thank God, and they left still cursing. The situation cleared a bit and we managed to end without any further incidents. Background: I used to work retail in a DVD/CD store that rhymes with manatee. Australia. We had computers that we could use to find certain titles/artists in the store if we had it in stock, or we could even order from any of the other 300 plus stores in the country and have it shipped to the store. Many people would use this for older CDs or collector items that were harder to get. One day an older bloke came in asking about a certain smaller 80s rock band that I can't remember. I looked on the computer for him and was able to track down their album names, which of those albums he wanted, located the album in stores around the country, and got his details to enter into computer for when the albums arrived in store so that we could contact him. He thanked me and said that he was so happy that we could get these albums in for him and lift the store. The next day I got called into the boss's office because of a customer complaint. It was and is my only ever complaint in any job for the past 9 years of working. He had rang up and complained that, while my service was lovely, I didn't make enough eye contact when I was using the computer. Cue malicious compliance. 3 days later he came in because he had another band he wanted to order. Luckily I was working. As soon as he walked in, I greeted him with the biggest smile and looked him straight in the eyes. When he asked if we had any of his band in stock, I typed it into the computer while maintaining direct eye contact. It took me about 4 tries to find the right keyboard letters, as I wasn't that great at touch typing. He was starting to get annoyed, but he didn't voice it. Then I had to search what store location these albums were at. That took another couple of attempts to type. I turned the computer monitor around to the point it looked like it was going to snap off. I had to move this place from the counter, which took me more time, but finally I was able to set it up at such an angle that I could read it off with a quick glance, but also still maintain eye contact. At this point he started to squirm and look away, but I was only beginning. Next was his details and taking his deposit, normally $10. It took me a solid 6 attempts to enter his details into the system, as you had to select each box to type in, and that was hard considering I wasn't looking. At this point he had gone rather quiet and was looking at his shoes. When he handed me his money, I still maintained direct eye contact, and even dropped it accidentally out of my hand, which led to me awkwardly slap around on the counter until my hand found it. Wouldn't want to break that eye contact looking for a few coins. After all the typing attempts, it took me an extra 10 minutes to serve him, all because I couldn't look at what I was doing. To this day, I've seen him a couple of times, but he won't come to my register and he doesn't make eye contact or hides in the aisles until I'm busy with another customer. A shame really, he had such lovely brown eyes. And now we have reached the end of today's stories. Thank you for watching and see you next time.